Hey everyone, Yoyston here with a different sort of video for you all today. I hope you all are doing well wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today I wanted to talk about the state of the Tolkien fandom as it currently exists in late 2025 going into 2026. You know, I've been thinking about making this video really ever since I noticed the online and kind of Lord of the Rings cultural effect of the Rings of Power show, as well as the politicization of the Lord of the Rings and so forth. Now, as a lore channel, it didn't necessarily seem right for me to discuss this, but then again, as a Tolkien YouTuber inside of the community and inside of the space, it did feel right at the same time. So let's jump into where all of this is at, the state of the Lord of the Rings fandom, where we're headed, and address some of the negativity and positive things that hopefully should help overcome it. My friends, thank you all for joining me today. Let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments below. Hope to generate some interesting conversations with this. Hopefully it won't be too controversial, but let's begin our tale. All right, first we're going to start with something that generally I stay away from entirely with this channel. People tend to try to drag Lord of the Rings into politics, into cultural drama, and all of that kind of stuff. Now, I'm going to stay rather apolitical even as I address this here, but what sucks is either side or any political side talking about how Lord of the Rings is political or how it represents this political ideology or faction or whatever it is, or people trying to use it to support their own side, whatever it is. Again, just by its nature, its creator and so forth, it is meant to be escapist fantasy, bring us into a world that is far from our own and into days of glory, days of sorrow, and how heroes overcome darkness, right? And it just it just cheapens it to bring it into this current political moment, which, again, as someone who has a background in political science and teaches government and all of that, like I think it really cheapens what the source material that we love to drag it into that. So my advice, my opinion, is ignore it. Anyone that politicizes Lord of the Rings just doesn't understand it. They don't know what they're talking about. It might just be rage baiting, or it just might be in reference to them liking the source material, but ignore it. I hate that some of the names are used for companies or for certain individuals to support agendas or to denounce other agendas or other ideologies. I just ignore that. That is not what any of this is meant to be about. Now, enough about that, right? Let's go to the fandom itself. Let's go to Tolkien's community online. And honestly, I really love our online Tolkien community. Now, I know people are divided by things like Rings of Power, which we'll discuss here in a bit, but man, most all of the Tolkien YouTubers, we're all like on good terms. We don't have drama, right? There's no beef between channels and us making videos about each other and weird stuff that you see in other fandoms or other communities. And even recently, right, a couple days ago, I played Return to Moria with them recently, and that kind of stuff's just so fun and wonderful to do. So shout out to all of them, all you guys, for keeping the community healthy, right, and the leaders, right, the bigger channels, Nerd of the Rings and Deep Geek, just love those guys, right? They just do amazing work and keep the community just so friendly, right? And I really try to hopefully positively influence that as well. Right. And again, just keep that going. Keep the community and the discussions online civil, because yeah, if you do look at some other online communities, it's just toxic and the creators don't get along and stuff. And really though, I don't know. I do really enjoy that about our Tolkien community. So moving from that into adaptations, let's talk Rings of Power, classic. It is no lie that Rings of Power it seems to have soured the overall environment of adaptations, Lord of the Rings, online discussions of it. It partially dragged it into politics too, and so did creators making videos about it, all of that, right? Some people blame the content. Some people actually blame voices like my own for making it negative. And honestly, maybe I have been overly critical. Maybe I have been overly negative about Rings of Power, but I stand by a lot of what I've said about it in the reviews. The Lord of the Rings movies proved that something special could be made by adapting this IP. Rings of Power is just not good. It fades out, if you guys notice, it fades out of the cultural conversation pretty much every time it's off the air. Like, yeah, I see it sometimes referenced within the Tolkien community, but no one is talking about Rings of Power like right now other than, hey, there's that show, right? It's going to have another season, or it did have another season last year, but it's not, I don't know. No one's like making theories about it or videos that really break it down. It's just so shallow, right? It's not a space like you could have a show that's been off the air for years and years and people are still making breakdown videos, or that's what the deeper allegories or the deeper symbols meant and in the show and whatever. Rings of Power doesn't have that. And it's because it's just not that deep, right? It feels cheap, and it doesn't feel like a Lord of the Rings adaptation should, as I've said in my reviews. Now, not all of the parts are bad, but in my opinion, it kind of sucks. And it's because it doesn't follow the source material that is so good. Right? It could have been better, and that's the biggest letdown. Could Rings of Power get better? Maybe, but it almost doesn't matter if the first half of the series is already bad, and then the next half gets a lot better. I mean, cool, it'd be great to see some awesome moments, but I'm not holding my breath, right? They fooled me twice, Rings of Power Season 1 and 2. I really had hope that maybe they would learn from their mistakes. I don't think so. Like, was Season 2 marginally better in some ways and marginally worse in others? Totally, right? So there are some choices in the show, and then some commentators about it, right? Again, I'm not trying to say anything to start beef with anyone, and everyone has the right to say what they mean about the show. And honestly, I see where a lot of the points come from, but where I land is just, it's not that good. And because it's not that good, it's driven people away from the space, away from Lord of the Rings, on the internet and influencers and stuff like that. So I will get into talking about influencers, my own channel, declines that we're kind of seeing across the board, but again, especially with my own. But something that is rather interesting here is I do see a general decline in views across the board when it's anything regarding Rings of Power. Season 1 was hyped up, and my videos, right, with Season 1, I saw more views than with Season 2. People just don't care about the show as much. And even Amazon, there were reports that some great percentage of viewers did not finish Rings of Power Season 1. And so it's just... people don't care that much about it. And when it's on Season 3, Season 4, again, I'm sure there are going to be some viral moments, but I fear it's going to go the way of some of the Disney Plus shows with Marvel and Star Wars of like, it's the 8th show and no one's really watching. Again, a cool viral moment or a cameo might take place. That will spread online, but then it just kind of goes away again, right? Goes back underneath. I don't expect it to be like an Andor, for instance, which I've heard great things about. I expect it to be more like kind of Mandalorian Season 3, which kind of fell off, or something like that, right? That's kind of what it seems. Honestly, even when the show was starting, just kind of a little background here, I did think about doing some guide or companion videos alongside it. I mean, it made a lot of sense. You've got this big project coming out and a lot of people hyping about it and influencers that went, right? Again, I did not go to Amazon's invitation, right? And meet all these influencers and stuff, right? I didn't do any of that. I wanted to remain very objective about the show, and I didn't want to show my face, and it just wasn't for me, right? So I declined that, but yeah, they were trying to obviously engage in the community, and they still sometimes do, but I feel like they've lost the diehard Tolkien fans a long time ago, and they lost general audiences, or kind of like mixed with general audiences, just because it's deep lore, and the show's not a Game of Thrones. It's just not that good. So that's kind of the Rings of Power conversation about it. I think with something as mediocre or bad as it is, it kind of drove away a lot of interest in some of Tolkien's history, like backstories, something that I would hope a Silmarillion adaptation eventually might be able to revive. But it is creating more of an uphill battle for such a thing to exist, because after Rings of Power, do people really care about the history of the Second Age and the First Age and the Years of the Trees? Like, who knows? So going on to another adaptation that we've had recently, again, we're in 2025, right? So looking back to the end of last year, War of the Rohirrim. It was pretty hyped up, and honestly, I really liked it. And then, nothing. It kind of felt like, I've had videos on my channel that I've made that I thought people would absolutely love, and then it falls flat, right? It gets that like 10 out of 10 previous videos, meaning, right, it's performing worse than the last 9 videos. It's not 1 out of 10. It felt like that, right? It just was like meant to be this cool, great Lord of the Rings project, and then it just fell flat with the community. People just, all right, they moved on. I thought it was really interesting. I think the anime idea and that medium was great, but some people say they only created it to keep the rights at Warner Brothers, since we will be getting more Warner Brothers Lord of the Rings movies. And maybe on some level that's true, but I just felt that there was passion and there was love that went into that project, and now It is not being discussed at all. It's easy to forget that that came out 11 months ago or 12 months ago. So there was just not a lot of love that was returned with that film. And that's kind of unfortunate because, again, it probably squanders other creators or other companies or even Warner Brothers from thinking about doing that with the Moria story or the Angmar War or something else. Speaking about these other movies, I do sincerely hope that The Hunt for Gollum is better received and is hyped up, but I am a little bit worried because of the particular story, right? Because of that story that they chose to adapt. I really think that, I mean, after the general flopping of the Rings of Power, the stories of the histories of Middle-earth, again, that doesn't necessarily sound as appealing to people. Now, getting the actors back, Ian McKellen, Viggo Mortensen, Elijah Wood, Andy Serkis, getting those actors back in the roles might definitely put a lot of people into the theaters to see that, kind of like the Hobbit movies did as well. But also, with the Hobbit movies over 10 years ago, not doing as well as The Lord of the Rings, I'm just curious if there is an appetite, really, for something like this. So I'm a little bit worried. We'll have to see more, but I'm also just worried about how people take this movie. Do they care about it? Will they care? Will it flop? I don't know. I mean, again, obviously, full-fledged and funded movies would be amazing. I'm going to really try and enjoy it. But even like an extensive anime telling about the Silmarillion or a movie telling about the Silmarillion would be awesome. We're a few decades out still from the Silmarillion entering into the public domain, so we'll see. Again, it would be awesome to see that as full-fledged movies or a TV show or an anime, but it would have to be done super, super well, as it is with any of the stories of Tolkien, right? Peter Jackson, while it's still maybe not perfect in every single sense of the word, his movies, his first 3 Lord of the Rings movies, best captured that feeling of Tolkien's Middle-earth in a cinematic format that I really haven't seen emulated since, right? Since the end of The Return of the King. I do enjoy the Hobbit movies, but I definitely recognize that they're not the same. So putting movies and TV shows aside for a moment, like we will get more. There are a couple more unannounced movies, so we'll see. But it really kind of hinges probably on The Hunt for Gollum, which direction they end up going with it. We'll probably learn more about them in the next couple years and in the, just the coming years up until the release of The Hunt for Gollum. But looking at video games now, they too are looking rather mixed. So Return to Moria has performed well, and honestly, it's such a wonderful, great game. Again, I was just playing its expansion pack that came out the other day with a bunch of YouTube friends, so check that out. It was one of our live streams. It was a blast. But I will say that the game has had a rather limited audience, and it's made its way over onto other platforms and onto Steam and all of that. But even when comparing it to something like Shadow of Mordor or Shadow of War, I felt like that was way more, hyped up, or a lot more people were excited about that than they are talking about Return to Moria. And granted, it's kind of crazy to say this, but that's already about a 2-year-old game now, right? And other games, such as released in the same year, 2023, like the Gollum game, they've been flat out denied by the fandom, by general audiences, just not for being, for not being that good. I've gotten a lot of backlash because I gave Gollum a 7 out of 10, but here's what people need to remember with that review. I gave it a 7 out of 10 when it came to lore, characters, settings, and story. Those are my 3 criterion for grading my lore reviews. And so I thought the lore of that video game was actually quite good. But when it came to actually being fun, no, it was not that fun. But it flat out was denied. And then you have some games like Tales of the Shire that came out this year. And honestly, that's just been pretty ignored. Again, kind of like War of the Rohirrim, it surfaced a bit, a couple articles about it, and then boom, gone. No one's talking about it. And granted, that's a cozy game. I think that's kind of the reception that such a game was probably going to have anyway, but it's crazy. It's just not sticking around. None of these Lord of the Rings adaptations or games are really sticking around in the cultural or the community conversation for a long time. It just doesn't feel like there's that much interest, at least compared to what has been, right? The video games, the movies, the shows that have been. The Lord of the Rings Online, right, my favorite game of all time, is doing okay, but even by my research, I did this a couple weeks ago or so, I looked into the server condensing and how many players are still playing The Lord of the Rings Online, and based on what I've seen, I saw the player base go way down as far as I can tell from even like this time last year because of the server changes, but also because of the lag problems. It's an old game. Now, new yearly expansions, we're going to get one in a few weeks here. They are moving the game further and further away from the main plot and the main land. So at least they're continuing to add to it, but also it's not like, hey, this is Two Towers content or Return of the King content. It's like, we're way out here in far Harad almost, and we're far away from the main story and the tale of Frodo, it feels. So it also just seems so inaccessible because the game is so old. It was made in 2007, so it's 18 years old, which is crazy. Because it's that old, it's so inaccessible to get to the new content with a lot of characters. So it's just kind of interesting. I don't know. I think we do have some hope on the horizon with that new RPG. Lord of the Rings Online might, who knows, put out some amazing expansions. Again, the Durin's Folk expansion for the Return to Moria game was quite good. So there are new things that we could get hyped about, and I really hope that RPG scratches that Skyrim-esque kind of itch, but for Lord of the Rings. However, one question, and I don't have an answer to it, is where are all the different new games and remakes that we could be getting? Where are they all at? Lord of the Rings is a huge IP. Middle-earth is ginormous. And we don't have that many games or shows or movies. Like, where are they? Especially with how good it could be. Granted, you could maybe say the same about something like Star Wars or something like, a lot of IPs have kind of been worn thin is a good way to say it because of how much people have been trying to get out of them. And we don't want to see that happen to Middle-earth, but man, it just felt like in the 2000s and the early 2010s, we were just getting a lot of good stuff, but or even the mid 2010s with the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, maybe not great on the lore, but they were still fun games. Where's all that at? It just feels like we're getting stuff that just doesn't really stick very much. So putting all the adaptations and stuff aside, let's go to influencers. Let's go to my channel. So this is a bit of a channel update as well that I'll throw in here with the state of the Lord of the Rings. It's no secret, right? If you look at my views and my channel and everything, subscriber count, right? I'm thankful for everything that I get, of course. I've always been. I'm so lucky and fortunate to have you all as a part of this community, part of this channel. And this channel has done so many wonderful things for me. And so it's no secret, though, that the views have gone down on videos, right? Recently, in the past couple of years, it's been a general decline. I'm totally willing to share that with you all. And also, right, subscribers aren't coming in as fast as they once were. And to be honest, some of that is just the YouTube life cycle, right? Some of that is just, I'm one of the oldest, if not like the oldest Lord of the Rings lore channel doing only Lord of the Rings lore, right? There were Lord of the Rings lore videos and stuff like that before me, but purely doing just Lord of the Rings content and lore stuff. I was one of the first or one of the oldest. And so, again, on YouTube, there are going to be others that come along and just do it either better or more interesting or more entertaining or just catch that algorithm. That's kind of one thing I've realized with YouTube too. You have to strike it while, strike the metal while it's hot or whatever the saying is. But it's also almost impossible to know when it's ready to be, what is ready to strike at what time, what the algorithm's going to do and all of that. But it's also interesting too that like, as support and membership and view time and subscriber increase have kind of declined on my channel, it is a little bit emblematic of Lord of the Rings generally. Like, I've looked at other channels too, and compared to views that they have gotten in the past, they are lower these days. And it could be because of the lull between the Rings of Power seasons, but also could just be a lack of interest in Lord of the Rings at the current moment. And so, I struggle with this in my mind, as I'm sure many YouTubers do. Like, every creator has had to have that internal monologue and discussion with themselves at some point. Is it me, right? Is it my content? Am I not as interesting as I used to be? What is it, right? And I'm not trying to look for sympathy, but just trying to explain kind of how I've been trying to think about this in the past few years, right? Have I lost something that made the channel special or something like that? And perhaps for some viewers, some subscribers, I'm sure I'm going to get comments on this video that say, yeah, Yoiston, like you've lost your way or something like that. But generally, I do disagree. I think, honestly, when I started the channel in 2017, there weren't many channels like it. Rings of Power, other things hadn't come along to I don't know, to change people's focus or drive people away from Lord of the Rings. But also there weren't too many channels. So if you wanted to watch Lord of the Rings lore, right, there weren't too many places to go. But also I would say today, my videos are higher quality now than they were then because of what I've learned with editing and all of that. I'm trying to really come up with interesting topics, right? Maybe they're not all as deep lore as they used to be, but sometimes I release a deep lore video and it doesn't seem like people really enjoy that as much, even as maybe like a video like this or Rings of Power reviews. And so I have to remember that despite all of this, I can't drive myself crazy about it. Every YouTube channel, every YouTuber has to go through something like this at some point, and it really could be the start of the decline of the Men of the West channel. I mean, who knows? It's not something I can necessarily control. I can just try to keep producing the best content that I can and hope people share that passion of Middle-earth and Tolkien as much, right, with me as I have always wanted to share with you all. But that's kind of how it is. Views don't equal happiness, right? And sometimes the smaller viewed things like our podcasts on Patreon, they get like, less than 20 views usually. But I love doing that, entertaining and engaging with our patrons and our YouTube members and all of that. And even as more Lord of the Rings channels have come in, it's not something that I am upset about. Not at all. In fact, I love it. In the late 2010s, early 2020, right, there were a lot of Lord of the Rings channels that all started around the same time, and that was awesome. Because we have this like Discord community and we all talk to each other, and I miss so many of them. I miss the smaller channels that did art or podcasts on deeper lore and all of that. And I feel like they've kind of gone away more in the past few years, which is unfortunate. Like, again, alas, it's the nature of YouTube. And one day, perhaps, it might be too much work for me to continue doing Men of the West, and people don't care as much or whatever it is. And maybe I'll need to change what I'm doing too, right? Everyone has their responsibilities and their priorities. And as time and life goes on for me, maybe that'll be the case, right? Who knows? But one thing is you all still watching, right? Those of you commenting and reaching out with support and all that, it really helps me want to keep going and really continue to enjoy what I do. I mean, I've made over 600 videos at this point, and I still have plenty more ideas. Maybe not as many as I once had, but a lot of ideas still, and I want to keep engaging with you, keep the channel going. I still do love doing this stuff. I still love making lore videos and talking about Rings of Power, as bad as it can be sometimes. Whatever it is with Royan, with you all, I do love it. And I love going on and doing live streams with other YouTubers. And it's a blessing, and I'm so fortunate, right? So I do want to keep that going. I want to keep things positive in the community. I want you guys also keep me positive, right? And truly, things like numbers and views and subscribers and money, it's all just distractions. That's not why I joined YouTube. And so I just have to remember that. So I'll keep going as long as it makes sense for me, and as long as you guys continue to really enjoy the content and want to see more. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. And I know a lot of other channels are going through similar things or have already, right? They've seen growth stagnate, and they wonder if it's themselves. They wonder if it's worth it. For me, it continues to be worth it. I want to keep going with it. So thanks for listening to my rant on that. Yeah, and again, Men of the West hasn't been the biggest Lord of the Rings YouTube channel for a few years now, and that's totally fine. And YouTube really has a way of getting to you and getting under your skin with stuff that doesn't matter. I have to remember that, as every YouTuber does. But you guys, man, you guys all matter. All of you that talk to me and reach out and love to share your passion of the Lord of the Rings and so forth with me and me to you. It's wonderful, right? I'm so thankful. And so I want to keep going with that. All right, so last topic here before I wrap up this ranty video is the future and the dark age of Tolkien. So where do we kind of go from here? Now, it does seem to me that the Lord of the Rings is entering into a bit of a lull or a dark age, to be entirely honest. Yes, there is one announced Lord of the Rings game coming and a few new films, right? Only one of which we really know anything substantially about. Beyond that, though, we've got Rings of Power Seasons 3, 4, and 5, assuming it does not get canceled, and Lord of the Rings Online expansions or game updates to other Lord of the Rings games. That's really it, right? That might sound like a lot, but it's really not, especially if most people aren't jiving with those projects or don't really enjoy those, right? So even if we are or have already entered into a bit of this dark age, It might be perhaps a bit like the years before the Lord of the Rings movies were released, because since then and after the movies, we got a whole slew of games and extended editions and re-releases of books, as well as new books like Beren and Luthien and The Fall of Gondolin. But we have to remember that in 2020, rest in peace to Christopher Tolkien, who passed away. And so it's very unlikely that we get too many new books with new unseen materials. Because we've gotten a few since his passing, right? Nature of Middle-earth and so forth. The Downfall of Numenor book. We've gotten a couple, but nothing that was giant or changing to the fandom or adding too much new lore. And so that's honestly probably the toughest part of all of this, is while Tolkien's works are timeless and incredible, each and every time we engage with them, the days are gone when we will get much of new content at all in terms of like new lore. The stories we who delve deeply into the works already know is going to be the lore we know for years hence and what we continue to have. Of course, Tolkien passed away himself in the 70s, but so much of his work was not released until after his passing that it definitely felt like we're destined to get more, but probably not, unfortunately. At least not much that is substantive, like something that is mind-blowing or changing to a great deal of the lore. And so until we get new, passionate tellings in game, movie, show, or anime format or whatever else, we have what we have, much of which is already kind of outdated or old, right? And it's not going to be like Star Wars or Marvel that kind of continues to grow as its own, some for better, some for worse. But Lord of the Rings, The Silmarillion, The Hobbit, so forth are the pride and mythology that shall not henceforth be expanded unless we receive further lore or information that we have not read from Tolkien's hands or Christopher's notes, which most people would decline to do, right? If for whatever reason, like the Tolkien estate allowed another author to continue the canon, I think I would have a lot of problems with that too. So I guess we can't be upset when we don't get anything new, right? And so it's sad, but it is what must be. And so this isn't me saying at all that we should give up on hope of seeing good adaptations again. With the advancement of technology and love or hate it, but AI as well and so forth, it may be that we see new tellings of these stories in new and incredible ways that are beyond belief at the present moment. It just might be a while before that happens. And until then, my recommendation is continue to check out the classics and the new things that are holding true to Tolkien. The games from the 2000s and 2010s, the expansions or mods or updates to them that upgrade them to fit more of today's gaming systems and ideas, or expands and adds lore, right? I love the Battle for Middle-earth, like Age of the Ring mod that adds lore. It's pretty much a new game itself. Check out creators like myself, if you would, but others, so many that I could shout out, who see the lore brought to life in new and interesting ways. Use our videos as a resource as you go through the books. Check out things like Return to Moria and support projects like those if you ever want to see new games like that again. Right? It's so easy to be like, oh, well, we've gotten that game, so hopefully we get more. Only if you support it. It's a tough thing to run a game and continue to update it and patch it and give it kind of these live service updates. If you don't support it, we won't get more. So there's that. And so there we are, my friends. I think that's really all I have for this, which was quite a lot. But thank you all so much for watching. If you're still here with me, thanks for making it all the way through. Let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments below. And going into future years, do you guys want me to make more State of the Lord of the Rings videos like this? As things change and develop, we're probably going to get tons of news over the next year, so maybe it'd be worth doing one at the end of next year. So share your thoughts, check out our partners, Mythologie Candles, Castle Cons, Lord of the Rings replicas, and Jordan Rennell's Soundscapes for audiobooks. Use all those codes below in the description to help out the channel. Best way to support us here at Men of the West is please take a look at our merch and our second channel, Masters of Mythology, and take a look at our Patreon and our YouTube memberships. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons, Joby Weasel, Ed Patterson, ComicNut64, Zoomi, and Peter Sheppard. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that thanks button to tip the channel and support what I do here. And please share this with a friend. My friends, thank you all for joining me on this adventure. Please do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Until the next one.